Welcome to the Project Success Through History podcast, where we connect history with project and leadership lessons. Now, this micro podcast previews an upcoming episode with Ala, who will discuss coffee and its role in leadership. Let's get started. Today, I'd like to talk about the history of coffee, something that I'm passionate about. I have 4 cups of coffee a day, and it really helps me get through the day. I've often thought, and I'm not sure whether you have as well, where did coffee originate from? Well, today we're going to talk about its origin story. We're going to talk about coffee house because they are fundamental to the spread of coffee. And then we're going to talk about how did coffee go global. So let's start with the origin story. Coffee has a mythology. That's right. The story goes, in Ethiopia, a long time ago, a goat herder observed one of his goats chewing on coffee beans and then watched this goat run around as fast as it could as it was stimulated by a coffee. That's the mythology. Let's talk about history. We're now going to go to Yemen, and that's where coffee really is founded. In the 14th century, there were Sufis. Now, Sufis are Islamic holy men, and they worked out if they brewed this coffee and drank it, it was a stimulant. And they used this for a very important spiritual purpose. They had a practice where they would stay up all night, pray and meditate, and they used coffee to help them go through the night. Well, naturally, you can't keep a good thing down. And of course, coffee came out of the spiritual world into mainstream. And all across Yemen, coffee houses started to spring up. Now, a coffee house is really unique because there was no hierarchy. You could be the wealthiest person in the coffee house or the poorest person in the coffee house. As long as you could afford to pay for a cup of coffee, you were equal in that space. This was incredible because it led to sharing of ideas that like not before. This created new conversations, new thinking, new beliefs, new visions, and of course, some of the rulers didn't want this and tried to close the coffee shops down, but that wasn't going to happen. Now let's talk about how did coffee go global? What caused this? Do you know what a mocha is? For most of us, we think it's coffee and chocolate, but mocha was the main port in Yemen. And between 1500 and 1700, all of the coffee beans that were used and coffee drunk in the world all came out of Yemen. They had a complete monopoly on it. Naturally, coffee spread. And the reason it spread was because of the Ottoman Empire. Now, the Ottoman Empire was based in Istanbul and went all the way to the gates of Vienna in Europe, around the Mediterranean, all the way down around through the Balkans, what we call Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Egypt. All of that was part of the Ottoman Empire and more. And this coffee, through the trade routes, made its way back to Istanbul. And when it got back to Istanbul, it was a great hit. The Sultan loved it, and the Ottomans loved it, and coffee houses just spread out across Istanbul. What happened then, of course, is that same coffee house culture then spread all the way through their empire. And in the 1500s, coffee houses started to appear in London. It's important to know that tea really wasn't there at that time, so coffee is one of the first drinks. Yemen had a monopoly. We know that. And the way they protected this coffee was they would steam the beans or lightly roast it. But eventually, that didn't work. And the Dutch smuggled out some coffee beans and took it to Java in Indonesia. And they started growing coffee. And just behind the Dutch were the French, and they took those beans to the Caribbean and started to grow coffee. And this is really when the demise of Yemen as this wealthy country started to occur. Today I wanted to talk about the history of coffee. We talked about its mythology story in Ethiopia. Then we talked about the Sufis who were fundamental to actually making coffee to what it is today. And then we discussed how the port of Mocha spread coffee around the world. I want to leave you with this thought. Next time you sit down with your friends and have a cup of coffee and discuss things, I want you to think of Yemen, that amazing place in the Middle East that really gave us coffee. I want you to think of the Sufis, because those holy men had the vision of what to do with these beans. And then I would also like you to think about mocha. Next time somebody says mocha, Remember, it's a port in Yemen. Be sure to listen to the full podcast where Ala will take you deep into coffee and you'll learn so much more. Signing off for now, David Jenkins.